where laughter's always the best medicine. The sounds are silly, and the phonatomy parts are wacky. Like runny nose. Operation, the silly...
Thursday, November 15th at the Aeolian Hall.
The effects of bullying can be both devastating and everlasting.
I believe everyone has the right to live in a community where they feel safe. When we take a stand, we can end bullying within seconds in more than 50% of cases. We at the Thames Valley District School Board proudly support the pledge to end bullying. Join us and take the pledge.
Bullying comes in all forms. Whenever and wherever you see it, help us end bullying today.
AJ lives for hockey and has ever since he was a baby.
Because I get to skate fast and score goals.
AJ was born missing his left arm right at the elbow. The War Amps provides a hockey device. It attaches to his passive arm.
You just slide the stick in and just play hockey with it.
Having the prosthetics gives AJ the opportunity to do anything anybody else can do. The War Amps support means everything to AJ, to other champs, and to their families.
Change starts here. When you give to United Way, you have the power to create lasting change in people's lives and in our community.
Change started when my kids were given the tools to succeed.
Change started with the opportunity for a better life for my family.
Change started when I learned it was up to me to ask for help.
Please give.
Change starts when we work together. Change starts here.
Visit uwlondon.on.ca to learn how you can support your community through the United Way.
Another London MPP bows out of the Liberal leadership race, who it is and why they're not running.
I return to the White House more determined and more inspired than ever.
No time for celebrations, the serious issues Obama and the American people face.
It wasn't an off-the-cuff decision. We put a lot of thought and decision into it.
To curb rowdiness, a bar sets new age requirements. But is it just good business or age discrimination?
Merry Christmas, London!
Santa Claus is coming to town.
CTV News with Tara Overholt.
Good evening. Another high-profile London-based politician has bowed out of the Ontario Liberal leadership race. Health Minister Deb Matthews made the announcement earlier today. Priya Mann joins us live from outside Matthews' constituency office with more. Priya.
Tara, Deb Matthews, the MPP for London North Centre, joins the Energy Minister and London West MPP Chris Bentley in not seeking to replace the Premier. Now, Matthews met alongside McGuinty earlier today, just hours after making her surprise announcement at an economic summit in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Let's take a listen.
I want to stay pace of change and continue to drive the change that improves health care.
The health minister says she can make the biggest impact for Ontarians right where she is. In London, Maureen Temmie isn't sure it's a loss for the Liberal Party, but says,
I think it's probably a gain for her, because every time I see her on TV or in person around town, she's looked so stressed.
Matthews still plans to run in the next Ontario election, widely expected next spring. Ever since the surprise resignation by Premier Dalton McGuinty about 3 weeks ago, only 2 sitting cabinet ministers have announced plans to run.
They may be trying to run from the McGuinty record. I don't blame them. It's a bad record. But they all voted for it, and they all pushed it through cabinet. They're all the same.
And on the day Matthews announced she's not running for the leadership, she unveiled the Southwestern Ontario Development Fund. Matthews says the Jobs Fund will attract investment and create work in London, along with Elgin and Middlesex counties. And just looking forward to the days ahead, former Cabinet Minister Windsor's Sandra Pupatello and current Cabinet Minister Charles Sousa will announce their leadership bids on Thursday and Saturday, respectively. Tara?
Thank you very much, Priya. And later on CTV News, I'll speak with Conservative leader Tim Hudak and get his take on Deb Matthews' decision. Well, with the U.S. election now over and Barack Obama re-elected, focus is quickly shifting to a potentially catastrophic countdown. The so-called fiscal cliff will see tax increases for all Americans and drastic spending cuts come January, which could force the country into another recession. But as CTV's Omar Sashadina tells us, the president hopes to bring both parties together to find a middle ground, which would make that cliff not so steep.
Jubilation from a crowd of thousands as Barack Obama walked on stage with his wife and 2 daughters. A fierce fight for his second term, and now he has it.
I return to the White House more determined and more inspired than ever about the work there is to do and the future that lies ahead.
There is already talk of Obama's tough road ahead. With Congress and the nation still bitterly divided, Obama needs to reach across the aisle to bring both parties together.
We are really facing another sort of countdown with regards to the solvency of this nation, whether or not we're able to get back into a decent credit rating.
The first order of business finding a compromise to the so-called fiscal cliff. Billions of dollars in tax cuts that expire on January 1st. If no deal is reached, every American will see a jump in taxes, which would hit the middle class especially hard. An average hike of $3,500 for a family making $70,000 a year, potentially affecting how much people spend and threatening the fragile global economic recovery. The fiscal cliff compromise also has Canada watching closely.
Well, we're all concerned about it. All of us in the G20 are concerned about it. Listen, these are matters to be worked out in the United States.
The Democratic Senate Majority Leader says finding a middle ground is possible.
It's better to dance than to fight. It's better to work together. Everything doesn't have to be a fight. Everything doesn't have to be a fight. That's the way it's been the last couple of years.
A message echoed by the Republican leader of the House of Representatives.
If there's a mandate in yesterday's results, it's a mandate for us to find a way to work together on the solutions to the challenges that we all face as a nation.
For the Republicans, in addition to working with the president, they are also looking inward, trying to determine what went wrong this election. Already, pundits saying the party needs to reach out, particularly to Latino voters who supported Obama this time, if the party wants to win in 2016. Omar Sachedina, CTV News, Washington.
The financial markets weighed in on Barack Obama's re-election victory today, and investors did not give the president a thumbs up. In Toronto, the TSX fell by 131 points, while the Dow Jones plunged by 313. Early relief over a clear-cut winner from the election turned to pessimism over the prospects of stopping a string of tax hikes and spending cuts at the end of the year. Meantime, the Canadian dollar fell nearly half a cent to close at 100.39 cents in U.S. funds. And according to the website tomorrowsgaspriceaday.com, the price of the pumps in London will rise slightly overnight to 120.8 cents a litre. Meantime, Canadian authorities are celebrating tonight after voters in Michigan rejected a proposal that would have impeded plans for a new border crossing between Windsor and Detroit. Michelle Molesky has more.
The Canadian government is pleased with Michigan voters. Proposal 6 would have required voter approval for a second bridge crossing between Windsor and Detroit. 61% said no thanks.
It now clears the way for the construction of the new Detroit River International Crossing.
The Prime Minister even took the time to comment on the new Windsor Bridge while on a trade mission in India.
We're very pleased to see the support of the people of Michigan for the new bridge between Detroit and Windsor, which is very important to the economies of both our countries.
We will not speak about what we'll do, Mr. Maroon, in the future. Us, we're very happy of the result we had yesterday. We will continue to work and to build this bridge.
It's a big victory after months of uncertainty and intense lobbying by the bridge company.
You know what to tell them. Tell them no.
Citizens are a lot smarter than that. They're not that stupid.
Economist Mark Meldrum adds this kind of lobbying is rarely effective.
If you look at all the proposals ever passed in every state in every election, it's very rare that a company-sponsored proposal actually passes.
The people should decide is the committee that paid for the ballot proposal. In a written statement, Director Mickey Blashfield says they would do it all over again, just in different ways. He says they're proud of their campaign, which invited public scrutiny of the multi-billion-dollar government deal. Blashfield says he's confident Michiganders will hold both governments accountable to live up to their promise that the bridge won't be paid for with American money.
It was a terribly misleading campaign, and they spent over $30 million with misinformation.
But despite clearing this hurdle, Michigan Governor Rick Snyder says there is still a lot of work to be done.
Still, it could be a couple of years in terms of actually getting shovels in the ground, but the permitting process, the engineering work, there's a lot of important work to be done, and so I think we're on a good timetable.
Windsor West MP Brian Massey is warning his government to do all the remaining work by the book.
There's probably going to be more lawsuits along the way. We expect that to continue as part of the process.
Michelle Molesky, CTV News.
Motorists traveling in the eastbound lanes of the 401 through London were delayed for 2 hours after a car crashed into a transport truck this afternoon. The OPP say the accident occurred just east of Highbury Ave at around 3 o'clock. Traffic was tied up for several kilometers. Police say the driver of the car, a woman from Mississauga, sustained non-life-threatening injuries. She ended up being charged with careless driving. She wasn't alone. Officers say another woman traveling with an infant in the back seat was also charged with careless driving. She was seen driving backwards against traffic along the 401, trying to get out of the traffic tie-up. A Sarnia bar has taken an unusual step to curb a recent rash of rowdy behavior, setting its own curfew for young customers. But does the new policy go too far? Daryl Newcomb joins us live with more. Daryl.
Well, Tara, when a pair of nearby bars that cater to a younger clientele closed recently, returning students started showing up at the Two Amigos, bringing with them a set of challenges that the owners haven't yet been able to control. So, starting this weekend, after 10 p.m., the bar is restricted to customers 25 and over.
Right in the eyes, no?
The beer isn't the only thing coming to a head at the Two Amigos Bar and Grill. So is frustration over noisy young patrons that began frequenting the bar this fall.
They're full of energy and they're boisterous, and a lot of times they don't even realize they're being very, very loud.
The bar closes at 2 a.m. and noise is disturbing nearby homeowners. So starting this weekend, a new rule. After 10 p.m., only people 25 and older will be allowed in.
We've tried other avenues that haven't necessarily worked, so we thought last resort we'd give this one a shot.
The younger clientele increased revenues for the bar by as much as 30%, but at the same time, the cost for security had to double, putting the Two Amigos squarely behind the 8-ball. But is turning away 19-year-olds in favor of a 25-plus crowd age discrimination. Jeremy Kuyak is 24 and calls the age limit arbitrary.
There's people that are under 25 that are completely responsible and won't make a scene, and then there's people that are over 25 that would make a scene.
The Ontario Human Rights Commission has not received any complaints, but says it would really depend on whether all other options were exhausted.
It could be viewed as discriminatory, but it would be up to the tribunal whether that defense was reasonable and justified.
The Two Amigos say they've done their research and will abide by Alcohol and Gaming Commission rules.
We're well within our rights to make a policy along those lines. We just have to have it posted for people to see.
Now, the changes go into effect on Friday night. Management tells me that early 20-somethings will be told at the door of the rule, and inside around 9:30 or so, they'll be gently reminded by staff that their stay will have to end at 10 p.m. Tara.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, Daryl. The final voyage for one of Canada's iconic submarines may be delayed as it prepares to leave a Hamilton shipyard for its last destination at a new naval museum in Port Burwell. Nick Paparella has more on what's expected to be a long and arduous journey.
It's the final touches before HMCS Ojibwa sets sail for one last voyage. This time, it's on a barge. The Ojibwa was Canada's first Cold War submarine. Retired Rear Admiral Dan McNeil is part of the Elgin Military Museum, the group that's restoring the sub. The vessel will be the centerpiece for the new Museum of Naval History in Port Burwell, and it has quite the past.
These submarines were built to be the quietest submarines in the world, and their job was to track Soviet submarines, and most of which were nuclear powered and noisy. So their job was to do surveillance in the North Atlantic, find Soviet submarines, and if the Cold War ever turned hot, their job was to take out those submarines.
The sub was supposed to be moved November 14th, but the weather has caused delays. It's now expected to set sail sometime before the end of the month.
It's a big project, but it's an exciting one to be a part of.
The barge company in charge of moving the sub out of the Hamilton shipyard says it will take up to 40 hours.
Weather is our biggest obstacle and biggest concern. We have two tugs who will be assisting this tow. They are small but mighty.
Now, even though it's being moved in the next few weeks, more work needs to be done when it gets to Port Burwell, and tourists won't be able to get on board until the spring.
According to those running the project, the wait will be worth it.
Submarines in and of themselves are mysterious. We don't normally get to see them. The story they tell is very interesting. It's 300 feet long, 5 stories tall at the tallest point. And when you see how 72 men lived inside it for up to 90 days at a time, you'll be amazed at how what small spaces there are inside for something that's that big.
This is history, and the history is about the Submariners who have served Canada.
In Hamilton, Nick Paparella, CTV News.
Now, CTV News welcomes some visitors to our newsroom today.
What you see here is our working newsroom.
29 grade 9 students from right across the city were participating in the annual Take Your Kids to Work Day. Besides touring our newsroom, the students got a look at the technical facilities here and the radio station 102.3 Bob FM. The Take Your Kids to Work program gives students a chance to explore future job prospects and lets employers showcase what they do and how it impacts the community. It may not feel like Christmas yet, but Londoners are gearing up to celebrate the 56th annual Santa Claus Parade this weekend. Celine Moreau gets a behind-the-scenes look at what's in store.
Jolly old St. Nick is getting ready to visit the Forest City for what's being called by organizers one of the largest Santa Claus parades London has ever seen.
We've got the stilt walkers coming, and we've got horses. We've got a couple horse troops, a local drum line, which is really good. So it's going to be good.
The parade, which has a budget of around $40,000, had some financial struggles last year before some last-minute key sponsors stepped in. The same sponsors will help fund this year's parade.
We wouldn't be able to produce it without it. They're on board again, which is going to be really, really good for the parade, and so that kind of offsets the cost. As you know, the budget's pretty high to produce it, and it's going to be an excellent show. It's probably going to be the best parades we ever put on.
Lots of charities will also be accepting donations during the parade, one of them being the London Food Bank.
It's incredibly important, not just for us, for a lot of the agencies we help as well. And, we're up like a lot of other agencies, 19-20% over where we were last year, so it's huge.